I graduated from New England Conservatory of Music in Boston. That's where I got my Bachelor of Music. And then I moved on to Yale School of Music, where I was at graduate school. I got my Master's of Music there. And believe it or not, I was actually not a theory major or composer. I spent a lot of time performing. I was actually a voice major in graduate school and in undergraduate school. And I did a lot of piano accompanying for some of the performances, recitals, and for some of the classes or lessons that people had.
So you started out majoring in voice. So do you sing?
It was piano actually first. Piano, I started lessons at age 8. And then I continued on with that. And then later on, as my voice matured, I decided to take voice lessons. I have to say, I've always been interested in theory. It's just been always fascinating for me. And I've studied it as when I was studying piano and voice, I also studied theory. That was part of my background and my education. And I guess after raising a family, I guess it was in my blood. And I decided I really needed to go back and do some more writing. And so,
what were you playing and doing all this while you were raising your family, or you kind of took some time off?
I did perform, and I did play. So I always kept up with that, and that's what I get the most thrill from, is that I feel that my music is inspirational, and people have told me that they feel it's soulful, and it's very calming, and that's what I want to get across.
So how do you get an idea for a creative piece? Like, what's your creative process?
Okay. There's actually two different ways. One is that very often, and actually I have a number of these pieces on my CD where I've had an image in mind, and then I work from there. And so, for instance, I have this piece called Day of Play and Day's End, which is about children playing, and it really feels like that. And then at the end, when they're ready to go to sleep, when they've totally wiped out from playing on the playground, then there's a calming part to the end of this piece, and it's because they're ready to doze off, and you feel that almost when you hear it. I actually had that performed. There's something called the Women's Composers Festival in Hartford, and they played this piece. They found their own musicians to play this piece. It takes place every year.
So there's a Women's Composer Festival. So there's a lot of women composers around.
In Connecticut. In Connecticut.
It's a very specific in Connecticut.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. So
and it's in the summer?
I think we did this in the, good question, I'm not sure if I think we did it last spring. When they have it, March or April.
So you get an idea, so like
you have
kids
an idea.
Playing, and,
right.
and then you just sort of play around on the piano, what would sound and feel like kids playing?
Right, I do that. I've had other pieces where it's about water, or this new CD that I've just come out with called Arrival of Spring, and it really does feel like spring. It's a two-movement piece. But besides the image part, I just go to the piano, and very often I just have these different melodic ideas or motifs.
So you just sort of play around?
Just play around, I write them down, and then very often I go back and forth with it. So I leave the room, then I go back again, and then I have to know, after maybe listening to those melodies over and over again, either it sits well with me or it doesn't. And I know that if I'm still happy with it, you know, after a certain period of time, then I go with that, and then I try to find other melodies that work with that. For instance, if I'm doing a three-movement piece, I have to come up with three main melodies. But I don't know, we haven't discussed this, but part of the writing process is working with a program called Finale, which is actually a notation program, and it's a computer program.
Oh, really?
And so that's how I
So you plug in little notes and stuff?
Well, that's how I write. I actually have a keyboard. It's a synthesizer, and it's hooked up to this computer. And basically, since I'm a keyboard person, that's how I work.